Well, let's go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Kind of before we get started, let me take care of a few kind of housekeeping notes. First of all, let me thank our sponsors. America's Small Business Development Network in Montana supports this program. The Montana Department of Commerce, SBA, U.S. Small Business Administration, Montana State University Extension, which is my employer, the Montana Economic Development Association all contribute to this, as well as Grow Great Falls Economic Development and the University of Montana all combined to bring this series to you at no cost. So appreciate the support of all of those organizations. Next month, I just want to mark it on your calendars if you haven't already. It'll be November 3rd. At 11 will be our November edition, and we're going to have Shelby Humphreys with Missoula Social Media talking about dipping your toes into TikTok for business. So that'll be our November webinar. So mark your calendars for that. One other request I've got of folks, we are about to start thinking about our 2023 schedule. With topics and speakers. So if there's a topic that you would like us to cover, send me a note, put it in the chat window, send me an email later, and you can also let Jen know or Rich Gannon as well, and we'll kind of incorporate that into our planning process for 2023, which seems hard to believe. We're already nearing the end of 2022, but I think it's coming pretty quickly. So let's see. Make sure I don't miss anything in my notes here. So just a couple of kind of ground rules for how we'll go on today. Please feel free to send questions in through the chat window at any time. I will read those if we've got a natural pause in the presentation. If not, we'll catch those at the end of the presentation today and ask those to the presenter. Also, at the end of today's session, you'll have the opportunity to unmute and ask questions directly as well. So we'll do those at the end of the session if you want to ask a question that way. And then one other note on the chat window, if you send it directly to me, I won't say your name, I'll just say we had a question come in. If you send it to everyone, then we'll obviously know where the question came from. So your choice in terms of how you'd like to ask questions to our presenter today, or if you want a clarification, further comments. And today's session will be recorded and the slides are available, and we'll have contact information available for our presenter at the end as well. So, well, with that, let me introduce our presenter today. We have the honor of having Lillian Sunwall with us, who is a Vice President and Business Strategist for the Great Falls Development Authority. And so she's been part of that Great Falls Development Authority for, I think, about 17 years. So she knows a few things from being with that organization. She's been leading the Brownfields Revolving Loan Fund, the assessment program, managing grants, cooperative agreements, coordinating projects, oversees the Agritech Rail Park Association. She has a certificate in grants management certification program through Management Concepts. She also manages the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, helping businesses compete in the federal, state, and local marketplaces for contracting opportunities with the CPP certification. She's a native of Seattle, spent some time at Puget Sound Bank, so understands the lending side of things as well, and has a degree in business and information technology, and she's also worked for Travel Company of Montana. So I think there's a lot of interesting things if we were visiting over coffee or happy hour there that I would like to learn a little more at. So with that, I am going to turn it over here to Lillian to talk a little bit about some contracting related issues.
Thanks, Joel. I appreciate it. Well, welcome to the presentation on small business certifications. And I'm here to talk about how certifications can help your business gain an edge in government contracting. I'm going to stop my video, and then I'm going to share my screen with you so we can get started here. So here is the overview of the agenda for today's training. We'll look at the importance of small business certifications, eligibility, the big picture, and big picture tips for small businesses, and then the federal small business certifications, and end up with answering any questions you may have. The webinar today is a big picture 101 level introduction to small business contracting certifications. It covers the benefits of these major certifications and eligibility. It is not a complete discussion of all the requirements of these complicated programs. So for a deeper dive into a particular program or certification, you can contact your local PTAC to schedule a training. Small business is the backbone of the U.S. economy, and they play a vital role in job creation, innovation, and community development. They also make up 99% of all employers and employ nearly half of the country's private sector workforce. If you're a small business owner, chances are you may have heard about government contracts and are just wondering if it is worth exploring or even attempting. One reason would be to get a piece of the federal pie. This is what was spent by federal, state, and local agencies in fiscal year 2021, 1.1 trillion plus. So why does that make small business certifications important? Federal agencies are given small business goals, and the goals for federal agencies each year are 23% to small businesses, 5% to small disadvantaged businesses, 5% to woman-owned small business, 3% to service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses, and 3% to historically underutilized business zones. In 2021, the federal agencies exceeded some of these goals. 26% in small business contracts awarded may not seem like a lot, but 26% of 1.1 trillion, is $286 billion. Also listed here are the other awards to the other set-asides. It's a lot of money. The government works to accomplish these goals in two ways: by set-aside certification versus full and open, and by sole source. Sole source is where a contract is awarded with no bids at all. Rules, of course, are attached, but it increases chances of winning a contract. These certifications are used by the entire federal government. It starts with small business. Then these other set-asides are subcategories of small business. We'll look at them each individually further along in the presentation. What is the importance for small business certifications? Well, there's access to more opportunities. There's less competition, including potential sole source contracts, getting noticed through the SBA's database, the VA Vet Biz database, and a lot of state and local vendor databases. You're sought after by agencies and large primes, and there's increased value to potential teaming partners. Small is the key. A company must be a small business. What does that mean? And what's the definition? They are organized for profit. The place of business is in the United States. They make significant contribution to the U.S. economy and qualifies as small under appropriate size standards. So what do we mean by size standards? A size standard defines the largest a company can be to qualify as a small business for federal contracts. Size standards vary by industry, as designated by the North American Industry Classification Systems, or for short, NAICS codes. Size standards are either based on a company's average receipts or on its average number of employees. And here's a link to find out more about those size standards. Be careful. Just because a company qualifies as a small business for federal contracting purposes does not mean they qualify for state and local small business certifications, and vice versa. State and local governments often apply their own kind of test to determine whether a company is small. Here are some big picture tips. Prior to certification, research potential customers. Potential customers like the Air Force Base down the road, the Army Air National Guard, or federal agencies in your area. Choose certifications based on eligibility and usefulness to your business. Be realistic. Certifications are helpful, but they don't guarantee a contract. Address potential eligibility problems before even starting applying for the certification. And last but not least, be patient. After you get the certification, you need to market the capabilities of your business first. Certifications second. Consider joining industry groups of like businesses. Set up meeting with potential prime contract customers. And if you're at all interested in subcontracting, contact large primes subcontracting liaison officers. Remember, certifications don't guarantee a contract. It's like a hunting license. You still have to do the work. One recommendation would be, if there is an Air Force base next to you, close by you, or a federal agency, set up a meeting with the contracting officer. They might not have time, but they might. Don't be afraid to ask. So, definition of a small business certification. A small business certifies its small business status in SAM's database. There's no such thing as a small business certification. Size is based on business's average annual receipts or average employee count. The business must include all affiliations, and if I'm certifying my business in SAM and I have a relationship or a partial ownership in another business, I have to include that. I want to stop sharing here for a minute because I think it skipped a few slides. Okay. So let's look at 8A certification. It's a formal disadvantaged small business certification awarded by the SBA. There is no self-certification. The application process is intense, but it's a very powerful certification if you get it. It's a 9-year program, no extensions, and if you have applied, you should have a plan in place, because although 9 years seems like a long time, many companies don't figure out its potential until they're in year 5 or 6. And the value of this program, SBA comes in and helps the business. So to qualify for this, you have to be, of course, a small business and not previously participated in the 8A program. Be at least 51% owned and controlled by U.S. citizens who are socially and economically disadvantaged. Have a personal net worth of $750,000 or less. Adjusted gross income of $350,000 or less. Assets totaling $6 million or less. You have to demonstrate good character and your business potential for success, such as having been in business for 2 years. So what does it mean if you are applying due to social disadvantage? Social disadvantaged individuals are those who have been subject to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias within American society because of their identities as a member of groups and without regard to their individual qualities. The social disadvantage must stem from circumstances beyond their control. Members of some groups, for example, Black Americans, are presumed socially disadvantaged. Members of other groups, for example, Caucasian women, must demonstrate personal experiences of bias and discrimination. So the definition of economically disadvantaged: 3-year average adjusted gross income per IRS tax returns must fall below $350,000. Excludes spouses' incomes usually, and income used to pay S Corp or LLC taxes or reinvested in company are excluded. 3-year adjusted net worth must fall below $750,000. This excludes equity in primary residence, equity in an 8A applicant, and funds in most retirement accounts. 3 years unadjusted net worth must fall below $6 million. So what does it mean by potential for success? The company ordinarily must be in business in its primary industry for at least 2 years, immediately prior to the date of its 8A application. SBA will also consider the following items when they're deciding if the company has realistic possibilities for success in this program: their access to capital and credit, their technical and managerial experience of their managers, whether the company has necessary license, and business trends, for example, improving or declining revenues. As you can see, this isn't for startups. Next is the WOSB, EDWOSB certifications. This is a formal certification awarded by SBA. Self-certification was eliminated back in 2020. The application process is detailed, but it's not as extensive as the 8A application. Economically disadvantaged women-owned small business are WOSBs, but these women owners fall beneath certain net worth and income thresholds. And WOSB is a great certification. It also no longer has the 2-year in business requirement. Let's look at the qualifications for both of these certifications. For a woman-owned small business, they have to be a small business, be at least 51% owned and controlled by women who are U.S. citizens, and have women manage day-to-day operations who also make long-term decisions. The economically disadvantaged WOSB, they have to meet all the requirements of the WOSB. They have to be controlled and owned by one or more women, each with a personal net worth of less than $750,000. They need to be owned and controlled by one or more women, each with $350,000 or less in adjusted gross income. And they have to be owned and controlled by one or more women, each $6 million or less in personal assets. Next is the veteran-owned small business or the service-disabled veteran-owned small business certifications. This certification is a little funky. For non-VA contracts, this is a self-certification program, or they self-certify in sam.gov just like the small business certification. For VA contracts, the service-disabled veteran-owned small business is a formal certification, or as the VA calls it, verification program. You need to plan ahead about this certification because effective January 1, 2023, this certification will be required for all contracts, not just the VA. SBA will take over doing the certification for veteran-owned small business and disabled veteran-owned small businesses. Both these certifications are equal to the woman-owned small business, the 8A program, and the Hubzone. And the VA only offers set-aside contracts and sole source contracts to veteran-owned small businesses. So let's look at the qualifications for both these certifications. Since 2018, SBA and VA have largely followed the same qualifications and eligibility rules. An eligible SDVOSB or veteran-owned small business must be at least 51% directly and unconditionally owned by veterans. They have to be a small business, and the VA requires that they meet good character requirements. There are no net worth or income restrictions on this certification. And last but not least, Hubzone Certification. The full name is Historically Underutilized Business Zones. All the other certifications are based on who you are. This one is based on where you are. It is a formal certification awarded by the SBA. There is no self-certification. The application process is detailed and can be very intense in some cases. Unlimited potential during this program term, but the renewal is required at 1 year for recertification and or not set aside contracts. So every year you have to recertify, and every 3 years you have to do a full renewal. One of the cool things though about a Hubzone is you are entitled to a 10% price preference when you are bidding on non-set aside contracts. Or for instance, if you're bidding full and open against large businesses, you will get a 10% price preference. Let's look at the qualifications for this certification. You have to be a small business, be at least 51% owned and controlled by U.S. citizens, a CDC, an ag co-op, an Alaska Native Corporation, a Native Hawaiian organization, or an Indian tribe. You have to have your principal office located in a Hubzone and have at least 35 of your employees living in a Hubzone. So the primary office is defined as where most of the work is done, not necessarily the head office. And the goal of this program is to promote economic activity in places that, based on the census, are economically depressed. That is the purpose for this certification. It's to encourage companies to move their businesses into these areas, encourage them to hire people in these areas, and it will encourage economic recovery in these Hubzones. So how do you find out where these Hubzones are, or if you're in a Hubzone? Here is the link. The SBA has this great tool. Every once in a while it has glitches, but overall it works pretty good. You could put in an address and this tool will tell you if it's in a Hubzone. You can also use it to tell your employees if they live in a Hubzone. Well, I know this is a lot of information, but does anybody have any questions?
All right, Lillian. Well, first of all, thank you for that. We had 3 questions come in while you were presenting, and I'm not sure the order they came in and the order you'll want to answer them are the same. So I'll just kind of randomly give them to you here. So the first question was, how do I find out what types of products that federal agencies might be interested in purchasing?
Well, the government pretty much buys anything. But one of the things you can do is you can go to usaspending.gov and you can look and see where the government spends its money, what agencies, and it'll kind of give you an idea of what they're doing. And then you can also go to fpds.gov and you can look at what's being awarded out there. You could go to sam.gov and look what opportunities are available in contracts. So there's a lot of different ways to look this up, but the government buys anything you can imagine. For instance, we had one company buy dirt. We had another federal agency buy nuts. And then there's a company called Big Ass Fans, and the government buys those. I mean, there is literally anything you can imagine, products and services that they buy.
All right. Well, there's a couple of good resources there. Thank you. So there's a kind of a two-part question here. How long does it take to get certified? And who can help me with that process?
So each certification is a little different, but on the sba.gov website, it kind of gives you all these eligibility requirements, how to get started, what documentation that you would need. But any of your PTACs can help you walk through that process. The only one that's a little different is the VA verification process. Currently, it is still done under the VA, and you can go to VetBiz, and it will show you. The site is a little complicated, and we can help you navigate that if you're interested in doing that. But one thing to remember, like I said, is that the SBA will be taking that over January 1. So then being verified as or certified as a veteran-owned small business will be on the sba.gov website.
And can you just help me? Can you expand a little bit about what the PTACs are and where they are?
Yeah, PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, is not the best description, but we are located throughout the United States. There are, I believe, 5 or 6 in Montana, and we have counselors, government contracting advisors, that will help you from anything of introduction to government contracting, getting registered in SAM, to all the way through helping you with getting certified. And also, if you already have a contract and you're trying to invoice, we can help with that also, like wide area workflow and the IPP system. So there's all different things that we do. We can help review a contract with you, give you advice on that, but we cannot tell you what to bid, but we can help you with the regulations that come along with contracts.
All right. Well, before I open it up to open questions from everyone's, we have one more here. It is, how many businesses does Great Falls Development Authority help in a typical year to get certified for the first time?
To get certified, it varies. Right now, we have been working with, I think we've worked with about 5 in the last 6 months. 2 of them were woman-owned small businesses. And there was one we looked at, veteran-owned small business. And today I had a call on getting help with getting verified through the VA. So we get these questions all the time. And if they're having difficulty, we will help them prepare to upload their certification documents. We can't do that for them, but we can get them ready to go.
All right. Well, that handles all the questions that came in so far. Let me pause here. If anyone wants to unmute and ask a question or send a question in the chat window, now's the time to do that. All right. Appreciate the comment there. Any other questions? Well, Lillian, thank you very much. Are there any other thoughts or wrap-up comments that you'd like to share?
No, there's a lot of information I gave you today, and a lot of it may not even make sense. But, and like I said, this is a 50,000 foot view of certifications. They can be very complex and difficult to navigate, but if you have any questions or need any help, just reach out and we can do that for you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And if you missed Lillian's contact information, we're going to post the slides and a recording of this webinar to the same website that you logged in from today. So that'll be their resource whenever you get back to it if you need to be able to get a hold of Lillian or just review the content she had, because like she said, there was quite a bit in there today. There's a lot to know about that topic. So Lillian, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. And thank you for joining us. And please mark your calendars for November 3rd at 11. That'll be our November edition. And it'll be dipping your toes into TikTok for business.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.